Everyone, a big thank you to our incredible subscribers and loyal supporters for making today's investigation possible. Your support, the comments, the shares, the engagement, fuels this channel and keeps us digging for the truth when others stop asking questions. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, tap the notification bell, and join this growing community of people who refuse to look away when something doesn't add up. Now, let's get into today's case. Because what's happening right now in the Charlie Kirk investigation isn't just another headline. It's a story that's shaking the internet, the media, and even federal investigators to their core. The evidence doesn't line up. The timeline keeps changing. And the deeper we look, the stranger it gets. This case has gone from a tragic shooting to a tangled web of mystery, manipulation, and possible cover-ups, with questions that even the FBI can't seem to answer. Tonight, we're peeling back the layers, examining the official reports, the inconsistencies, and the shocking details that might completely rewrite what really happened that day. This is the case that could change everything. According to the FBI's official timeline, Tyler Robinson, the man they identified as the prime suspect, was apprehended within just 33 hours of the shooting. They called it an historic time period. Kash Patel, one of the key figures speaking for the Bureau, described it as a textbook example of coordination between federal and local agencies, a swift, seamless capture. Patel told the press that investigators had discovered a .30-06 bolt-action rifle hidden deep in a wooded area near the scene. The weapon, he said, was wrapped carefully in a towel. Nearby, a screwdriver was recovered from a rooftop, supposedly linked to Robinson's escape route. Within hours, the narrative was cemented. Robinson fled the scene, discarded his weapon, and left behind the very DNA that would prove his guilt. But even as that story spread through national headlines, something in those early statements didn't sit right. Notice what wasn't said. The FBI confirmed finding DNA on the towel and DNA on the screwdriver, but not a single mention of DNA on the gun itself. Think about that. If this rifle was handled, loaded, aimed, and fired, how could it possibly be clean? No prints, no trace evidence, no biological material, just a towel and a screwdriver on a distant rooftop. It's as if the supposed murder weapon had been carefully placed there, deliberately handled in a way that would leave no trace except the kind of trace someone wanted investigators to find. And for a bureau as experienced as the FBI, that omission, whether accidental or intentional, raises one unsettling question. Was the evidence discovered, or was it delivered? Kash Patel's official account raised more questions than answers. He emphasized that the supposed murder weapon, a .30-06 bolt-action rifle, was found wrapped in a towel deep in the woods. He even described it as if the towel itself was the key piece of evidence, not the gun. But what he never clearly said was whether the DNA matched directly to the weapon. It's a strange omission, especially in a federal briefing where every detail counts. In law enforcement, when a weapon is recovered, confirming DNA or fingerprints is usually the first step to link a suspect to the crime. But here, Patel and the FBI seemed unusually focused on everything but the rifle itself. And that's where the inconsistencies begin to pile up. According to the FBI's own statements, Charlie Kirk was allegedly shot by that very rifle, a .30-06, a long-range, high-caliber round designed for power and precision. It's a weapon capable of penetrating heavy bone, shattering concrete, and echoing across entire city blocks. If that rifle had truly been fired in a crowded public setting, it wouldn't have been subtle. The sound alone would have been deafening, impossible to mistake or ignore. But eyewitnesses tell a very different story. People who were just feet away from the stage reported hearing a muted pop, not the thunderous crack of a hunting rifle. Video recordings from multiple angles show no visible recoil, no intense muzzle flash, details completely inconsistent with a .30-06 discharge. Then came the autopsy revelations, the findings that shattered what little trust remained in the official narrative. The bullet, or at least what was left of it, didn't behave like a high-powered rifle round at all. No exit wound, no catastrophic internal damage. In fact, forensic experts began quietly suggesting that the projectile could have come from a smaller caliber firearm altogether. So, if the sound didn't match the rifle, the damage didn't match the rifle, and the DNA didn't even come from the rifle, then the question practically asks itself, was this really the weapon that killed Charlie Kirk, or was it planted to make us believe it was? At first, there was no autopsy report, not a single mention from the authorities about one being conducted. For days, silence. No medical confirmation, no ballistic analysis, no trajectory explanation. Then, almost overnight, that changed. Suddenly, an autopsy appeared. A report that seemed to surface out of nowhere, and what it revealed didn't just fill the gaps, it created new ones. According to the document, the bullet did not exit Charlie Kirk's body. The fragment was found lodged near his shoulder blade, just behind the neck, resting dangerously close to the spine, a position that immediately raised red flags for forensic experts. Because here's the problem. 30.06 round, the same ammunition the FBI claimed was fired, doesn't stop like that. It's a hunting cartridge, designed for massive penetration, for taking down large game at hundreds of yards. Fired at close or medium range, that kind of round would tear through flesh, shatter bone, and exit with explosive force. It doesn't lodge softly beneath the skin. For a bullet of that caliber to stop mid-path inside a human neck would defy both physics and ballistics. Experts began privately calling it statistically impossible. That single detail, the bullet fragment lodged beneath the shoulder, dismantled the core of the FBI's version of events. Because if the wound didn't match the rifle, then the rifle didn't match the crime. And that's when the most unsettling question of all began to surface among investigators, journalists, and even medical professionals who saw the report. Was the autopsy changed to fit the story? Or worse, was the story rewritten to fit the autopsy? Either way, it became clear that what was being presented to the public was not the full truth. The path of the bullet didn't just pierce through flesh, it pierced through the credibility of the entire investigation. This revelation changed everything. For weeks, the public was told that the weapon found in the woods, the .3006 bolt-action rifle, was the key to the case. It was the centerpiece of the FBI's narrative, the supposed murder weapon that tied Tyler Robinson directly to the crime. But when the autopsy report revealed that the bullet fragment inside Charlie Kirk's body didn't match that rifle, the entire foundation of the investigation began to crumble. If the projectile wasn't a .3006 round, then the weapon the FBI recovered wasn't the gun that killed him. That single fact doesn't just weaken their case, it collapses it. Every testimony, every headline, every press conference that followed that initial announcement now hangs under a shadow of doubt. And then a new voice entered the conversation, Candace Owens. In a statement that shocked even her own followers, she said Charlie Kirk was shot from the front. The bullet did not exit. The round was smaller, not from a .3006. Her words didn't just challenge the FBI's version of events, they disproved it. Because if the shot came from the front, it could not have come from the rooftop behind him, where investigators claimed the suspect was positioned. That revelation erased the possibility of a long-range rifle shot, and with it, the image of a single gunman perched above the scene. So, if the weapon in evidence wasn't used, and the trajectory didn't match the alleged shooter, who pulled the trigger, where was the real shooter positioned? And why, after days of silence and confusion, did the official story still insist on blaming a man whose alleged weapon couldn't have fired the fatal shot? Some began to suspect that the truth had been carefully managed, that what we were seeing wasn't an investigation, but a narrative being held together by selective details. Because the more experts spoke out, the clearer it became. The bullet, the angle, the impact, none of it supported the official account. And yet the FBI doubled down, defending a story that no longer stood on solid ground. Which leaves one haunting question echoing louder than ever. If Tyler Robinson didn't shoot Charlie Kirk, who did? As the evidence unraveled, a new theory began to surface, one that completely changes the way we understand what happened that day. Some independent analysts and online investigators now believe there weren't just one, but two shooters. The first, they suggest, may have been positioned on the rooftop where the screwdriver and towel were discovered, the same spot tied to Tyler Robinson. A perfect distraction, a planted narrative, a decoy that gave the illusion of an open and shut case. But the second shooter, the real one, might have been far closer, possibly standing on the ground level, or even inside the venue. In slowed down, enhanced video from multiple angles, a faint muzzle flash can be seen flickering from a nearby window, perfectly aligned with the front entry trajectory described in the autopsy report. If that footage is authentic, it means Charlie Kirk was hit from the front, not from above. And if that's true, then everything we've been told about where the shot came from and who fired it begins to collapse. The rooftop gunman may never have fired a single round. He may have been placed there, a convenient target for cameras, a narrative scapegoat to satisfy public outrage before the evidence even surfaced. Meanwhile, the real shooter could have operated undetected, silenced weapon, quick extraction, zero trace. Every frame of that footage now raises the same haunting question: was Tyler Robinson even meant to be the suspect, or was he meant to be the cover? Because if the true shooter stood inside that crowd, within arm's reach of Charlie Kirk, this wasn't just an assassination. It was a carefully engineered deception. Legally, the case is now hanging by a thread. Every major claim, from the weapon to the DNA, now faces reasonable doubt. If Tyler Robinson's DNA was found on a towel and a screwdriver, but not on the firearm itself, and if the bullet in the victim's body doesn't match that firearm's caliber, then the prosecution's case doesn't just weaken, it collapses entirely. Any seasoned defense attorney would tear it apart in seconds. If your weapon fires .3006 rounds, and the victim was not shot with a .3006, then what are we even doing here? That single sentence could dismantle years of investigation. And that's where things get dangerous, because this isn't just about one suspect's guilt or innocence anymore. It's about the FBI's credibility. A case built on incomplete forensics, missing evidence, and questionable chain of custody can't survive under public scrutiny or under oath. What started as a tragedy is quickly turning into a legal and institutional disaster, one that could redefine not just the future of this case, but the public's trust in federal investigations altogether. So where does that leave us? A suspect in custody, whose weapon doesn't match the wound. A bullet that shouldn't have stopped where it did. And an investigation that seems to twist deeper into contradictions with every new piece of evidence uncovered. The official story promised clarity, but instead it's raised more questions than it's answered. Was Tyler Robinson framed, a convenient name to close the case before the truth could surface? Was there a second shooter, operating from the shadows, unseen yet devastatingly precise? Or was the evidence itself engineered, shaped and staged to protect someone far higher up than anyone dares to mention? Each possibility leads to the same conclusion, that the story we were told might only be a fraction of the truth. For now, those answers remain buried, beneath layers of secrecy, silence, and something far more deliberate than confusion. And until that truth is forced into the light, all we have are the fragments of a bullet, a timeline, and a man whose death still demands answers. Because one thing is certain, this story is far from over.